Hey, it's Tina Forsyth here. I want to talk about a little bit of a touchy subject. Maybe here today, this might be one, I don't know that it applies to all of you by any means, but for some of you, it might poke you where it hurts a little bit, right? And that is why your team may be losing faith in you. Now, of course, I train and mentor and certify all kinds of high-level virtual support professionals, our online business managers. I'm very plugged into the virtual support community. I come from that world. I worked as a virtual support professional as an OBM for years and years before my current training company, right? So I know, and I talk to these people on a very regular basis. And there was somebody we spoke with recently in our OBM community who let us know that she had decided to go and get a job. She essentially decided to leave the OBM community. And of course, we asked her why. And part of her reasoning was that she had just lost faith in the community. She had lost faith in the clients that she had tried to work with over the years. And I don't know specifics of that particular scenario, but it really made me think, what is it that makes the people on our team that are there to support us, who really want to support us, who come from a place of service, who love nothing more than plugging into what you're creating and working with you to make that happen? What is it that can cause them to lose faith? What is it that can cause them to lose faith in you and your company and what you're creating? Because once they start to lose faith, bit by bit, things are going to crumble. They're going to crumble. It's just what happens. Without faith, things will really start to crumble. Without trust, things will really start to crumble. So a few things to consider in this area and in how you're working with your team as well, right? Number one, always pay your team on time and according to agreement. Now, here's how I believe you should pay money in your business. Pay first to yourself, pay second to your team, pay everything else after that, right? Now, I know some of you are doing the reverse. You're paying everything else. You're maybe paying your team. You may not be paying yourself at all. Eek! That's a whole other video in a lot of ways, right? But I know that's true for some of you. Or maybe you're paying yourself, and then you're paying everything else, and then you're paying your team last. If you pay your team last, if you put them at the bottom of the list, that's exactly how they're going to feel valued. Where your money goes shows what you value, right? It shows what you consider most important. And if you're perpetually late in paying team members, or if you're always looking at, we got to cut back on this or cut back on that, or there's some kind of roller coaster thing going on in payments, it will erode the relationship. And even if they say, oh, no, it's okay, don't worry, etc., that's fine, I can guarantee you resentment will start to build. I've seen it many, many times when that's been the case. Resentment will start to build. So always pay your team on time. I don't care what it takes. Bend over backwards, do a backflip, take out a loan, use a credit card, honestly. Whatever it takes, do it. That's what you need to do if you want to keep your team working with you at the highest level possible. Number two is breaking boundaries. It's expecting them to work 24/7. It's expecting them to do whatever you need them to do whenever you need them to do it. Now, when you're working with team members, I don't care if it's an employee or a contractor, similar things will apply regardless of how you're working together, right? Long-term project, etc. There is boundaries that need to be in place up front. When does somebody work? When are they not available for work? What do they do? What do they not do? What are they willing to take on or not, etc. And so when you have those agreements up front, as you should, ideally, then it's up to you to ensure that you're honoring those boundaries. Now, I'm not going to say you have to be perfect here, right? But just because you work on the weekends, just because you choose to work evenings, weekends, 24/7, etc., this is your business. This is your baby. And I prefer you don't do that. Quite honestly, I would still much rather you have time off as well. But at the same time, I know some of you enjoy working weekends. You enjoy being plugged into your business on a regular basis, right? But you can't decide to call your team member at 10 o'clock at night just because you had an idea or you forgot something, right? You can't be calling them Sunday morning and expecting them to answer the phone and then feeling upset when they don't. You need to honor the boundaries of these people who are working with you, because every time you break a boundary, again, a little bit of an erosion that's going to happen in the relationship there. Huge, huge thing to consider, right? Now, of course, there's crunch times, there's launches, there's busy times. It's fine to expect a little more when those are the cases, right? But that's the exception and not the norm. And when you can prepare someone ahead of time and just say, oh my gosh, this is coming up. Can you be available on the weekend if need be? More often than not, they're going to be fine with that because it's the exception and not the norm. So keep an eye on breaking boundaries. Now, last but certainly not least is misrepresenting your company and where you're at. There is nothing more disheartening, especially for people working at the level of being an online business manager, than being told one thing is going on and jumping into the business and realizing that's not the case. You need to really make sure that you're upfront with people about here's where we are right now and here's where we're headed. Don't paint some rosy picture of where you're headed if that's not the truth. Right? Like, it sounds a little bit funny in some ways to say this, but this again can be very disheartening. It causes people to lose faith in you when you say that something's going on when in reality it's not. And then they jump into working with you and they get in behind the scenes and they get plugged into the flow and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't what I thought it would be at all. This isn't going on. That's not going on. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Right? It just sets a shaky foundation. Now, and I'm not saying you have to be perfect by any means. I'm not saying you have to be further along than you are, whatever that might be. Just be real with people. Here's where I'm at right now. Here's where I'm headed. Here's why I would love to work with you to get there. Don't misrepresent who you are simply because you think at some level you should be further along than you are right now. So a few things to consider when you're looking at part of how we build strong relationships with our team members. There's various other aspects, of course, that come into play. But I mentioned these because I've seen them come up from time to time over the years, right? And I know from your perspective, it's not like you're trying to purposely break a relationship, or it's not like you're trying to purposely cause people to lose faith in you. But I want you to know that these things will cause that to happen, right? And anytime you can prevent that, anytime you can look for another way to approach and connect with your team members instead of breaking boundaries, instead of choosing to pay them late, instead of misrepresenting, where you're at or what's going on, then it's only going to lend itself to a stronger relationship with your team members. Until next time, it's Tina Forsyth here. Take care. Bye now.